Running never did much good. Hiding doesn't last forever. You can't run faster when it's you you're running from. So you throw your hands up like doves to the setting sun. Somewhere, John, the stars are falling like jewels upon a thin black veil. You'll find the mysteries enthralling. 5 seconds seems like 5 billion years. 10,000 galaxies away, yet still so near.
Welcome to Karen Holton's podcast. Karen permanently lost 178 pounds and found happiness and success by following her own advice. She has now developed that advice into the quantum health transformation. Heal, evolve, and thrive. Karen's website offers a free webinar workshop series, and you'll also find tools, methods, and practices to assist you to become the change you want to see in the world. She believes that we are all connected. Heal the planet by healing yourself. Connect with Karen at her website, KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com, and through Facebook at Facebook.com/Quantum Health Transformation. Now for the podcast.
So this is Quantum Health Transformation 2.0 Orientation, and my name is Karen Holton. I downstepped this program, so what that means is the information came to me from my spirit guides, but it's also built on everything I've ever learned from everyone else. So although this is fairly unique the way I put it together, it's not unique. When you start to go through the program, you're going to find that a lot of this information you already know. You may not have made the connection to quantum physics, or you may not have made certain connections to it, or maybe you have. So I don't want to say that I invented all of this, because this is all built on the backs of a lot of other people and historically thousands of years of information. I have a degree in social work, but I didn't want to be a social worker. I took a generalist program so that I was involved in learning what was interesting to me and ways that I felt that I could help people apart from the bureaucracy kind of organizations that typically hire social workers. So the first 2 years I took what at the time was called Women's Studies. It's now called Gender Studies, and it's a look at all the different systems to do with contemporary living, and through the lens or from the perspective of the non-white or the non-white male dominant faction, who generally are the ones who create history and leave out a whole lot. And so I studied the perspective from women's perspective, from the First Nations perspective, from the have-nots, their perspective, from the immigrant perspective. And it really gave me a much broader idea of what our reality looks like. And of course I took a lot of different types of sciences: sociology, anthropology, history. It's a very, very multidisciplined program I took. And so I flipped that, it took me 2 years, and I flipped that into my degree of social work. And so for the last 3 years, because it took me 5 years to get my degree, I specialized in addictions and family counseling, because I myself have addiction issues, and I wanted to know what treatments and what modalities and what people were doing in other parts of the world, what was effective and what wasn't effective. And then of course, everything I learned throughout my life, including my education, is also encapsulated in this program to help other people learn what I know without necessarily having to go to university to get it, because I think, sorry about that, knowledge and wisdom should be available to everybody. So that's basically what I'm about, and I just want to touch very lightly on my background and my teaching style. I already talked about my education. Through my education, I studied a fellow named Paulo Freire, and he came up with what we call the popular education model. Is everyone here familiar with popular education? Okay, popular education came from South America, And it was originally part of a literacy program where people didn't know how to read, and they thought, how can we teach everybody to read? Well, they found out that they didn't need to bring in experts. We already know everything. And when we get together and we problem solve, we already know everything. So popular education is kind of the opposite to me being the expert, knowing everything, dumping my information onto you, assuming you're a receptacle that knows nothing. No, we're all in this. We all know this stuff. And so I just wanted to tell you that sort of the group learning process is very much a group learning process rather than teacher and pupil. When you go out, this is a phenomenon that that happened to me once I started downstepping this information, and I'm pretty sure this is going to happen for you, where you're going to go about your everyday life, doing whatever you do, and the lessons are going to unfold for you within your perceptual arena. So you're just going to be doing your laundry and shopping and taking care of your aunt or whatever you do, and you're going to see learning opportunities that are going to illustrate the very thing we talked about. And it's pretty cool how that works. So you may find that you experience spontaneous learning and wisdoms. You'll realize that you already know the lesson. After you learn the lesson, you're going to say, I already knew that, but it'll bring it back up for you and bring it out fresh again. I'm just packaging it a little different. So you'll see the same patterns in your daily lives, and you'll find the sacred within the mundane. So everything, even just preparing dinner, there's a lesson in there. And these are sacred wisdoms that are planted all around us. The only way we can not see them is if we're not open to the possibility that they're there. This movement started in ancient times, but more through our contemporary record, we really see it came out with the Greeks, where the Greeks actually had a point where women were equal to men, and they had an enlightened view of how we work and about sharing and getting along, and it was quite beautiful. And then the Romans came in, and that was pretty much the end of that. Then came the time of Christ, and that's another thing that Christ, I'm not trying to promote Christianity per se, I'm just saying that there was a big movement about the time of Christ. And I'm not sure if Mohammed or any of the other sages from the time were also around the same time bringing in the same movement, but there was definitely a movement where they were shifting towards loving people, curing them through loving, channeling universal love energy down to this planet. And then, of course, that kind of got destroyed, especially by the Borgia popes, but we won't get into that. And then there was the Age of Enlightenment that happened, and that was right after the Dark Ages, and they started to realize that the human potential and that they were missing out by not allowing the common people's wisdom to be part of the accepted reality. And then, of course, that got dominated and fell apart. And then in the late 1800s and early 1900s, there was a rise of kind of health food gurus, where they started to recognize how important nutrition was. But that goes right back to the Greeks with Hippocrates, who said, let your food be your medicine. So you can see how throughout history, this movement keeps trying to get going, and it gets further each time, then shut down, then shut down. So then, I think World War I and World War II sort of screwed that up a bit and destabilized everything socially. Then the 1960s came, LSD, marijuana, and a whole bunch of basically blew our minds wide open. Unfortunately, everyone who came out of the closet, I'd say 90% went back in, just dealing with life, and we ended up back into another conservative age. The 80s, very conservative, 90s, very conservative, and then political correctness, I say no more. And then finally 12-12-12. It was interesting because I profoundly felt the shift in 12-12-12. And I went out to these 12-12-12 celebrations, and everyone's talking the lingo and pretending like there's something amazing happening, but I could tell that they hadn't made the shift. And I thought, I can't tell them I've made the shift and assume that they haven't made the shift, but I just noticed that there was very few people who actually got a shift and realized something really exciting was happening. And then this actually came out of that for me. And so in response to the movement, I was able to downstep this program from spiritual sources, and I've loosely organized it to correspond with the chakras. So most people are familiar with 7 chakras, but we also have black, which is below our feet, and then we have white, which is kind of up here. The black is about the same distance below. And so I loosely organized the data to correspond to the theme of the different chakras. Okay, Quantum Health Transformation 2.0, Step 9 Black, Introduction to Nubby Ball and Light Dark Integration. Okay, it's time for a little visual here. This is a nubby ball. Everything in reality can be described as being a nubby ball. A nubby ball can be issues, it can be things, it can be places. And as I pass this around, I'm just going to read to you a little bit from my notes on why this is such a valuable tool. And I am so grateful because this is why it's the foundation. It's going to teach us how to think on a quantum level. So the nubby ball led me to understand that everything is fractal in nature, and this tool allows us to see our own fractal flow once we know how to use it, which we're not going to learn until next month. A tesseract, we are and everything we perceive is divinity diversified. We are and everything we perceive is divinity diversified. The nubby ball tool represents a tesseract. A tesseract is infinity cycled through what we perceive as finite space and time. All levels of reality from the Planck, P-L-A-N-C-K, to the universal expanse follows the same dynamic flow. All beliefs, societies, and systems can be assessed through this model of analysis. As it is above, so it is below. The north point, if we just made this like a planet, the north point and the south point, those are only 2 nubs on a ball of infinite possibilities and infinite outcomes. But we're taught in our society that everything is either good or bad, light or dark, male or female. Any binary concept considers only 2 points among infinite positions within the realm of possibility. And truth and balance are at the center. And the more points we consider, the more we can come to understand reality, social as well as other aspects of our life. The best we can do is to plot the opposites of an issue or situation at the poles and then consider as many additional points as we can on our nubby ball. This gives us a sense of the whole and leads to 4th and 5th dimensional thinking. A nubby ball is also the flower of life. It is dynamic, ever-changing, and evolving under influence. So I'm going to show you, through a series of exercises. We're going to take the dichotomies, like for instance, good and bad, and then we're going to realize how much is between absolute good and absolute bad. The same as we are all on this nubby ball, and we're neither absolute good nor absolute bad. And we move around depending on our learning and everything. So that's the essence of the nubby ball. And it's very high level quantum thinking. But once you get used to it and you start to use it, it becomes automatic and it just blows your world wide open to possibilities. And the more we see that we're capable of and that we can do and options that are available, I think the more freedom we have. So if you shine a light on one side of a nubby ball, you would find that you would have a light side and a shadow side, similar to the planet. You know how it's half is in the sun and the other is dominated by the moon, and as it turns, it changes places. We're very similar to that. If you think of ourselves as nubby balls, we have a light side and we have a shadow side. So likewise, no matter how much we deny this conditioned duality, and the duality comes from the way we've been conditioned and held back through harnessing our thinking, and that's the dichotomies, right? So no matter how much we deny this conditioned duality and attempt to walk in the light, our shadow side remains. We share a collective consciousness of light and shadow as well as a personal dichotomy. So I'll show you how to use the nubby ball to achieve personal light body and shadow integration so that we can reclaim our full potential and our personal power. So that's what next month is going to be about. And that's a foundation, because until we have that thinking kind of down pat, this is going to make this easier, which is going to make this easier, and on and on and on. To get to the top gets much easier. To do things that you didn't know you could do before. It's quite exciting. So then we're going to go to step 8, red, grounding and birth of core belief systems. So there's three kinds of grounding for health. There's spiritual grounding, environmental grounding, and personal grounding. So there's spiritual grounding, which includes gratitude and appreciation, accepting unconditional love from people and pets. It's not limited to that. I'm just giving you examples. There's environmental grounding, which includes spending time in nature and the use of orgone generators or orgonite. And then there's personal grounding, which includes specific self-grooming techniques, stretching, and posture. So that's what we're going to cover at the next one. Once we accept our whole selves, we can now work on loving ourselves unconditionally. Think of yourself as a younger, less experienced being in need of guidance. We can develop an internal parent who guides the younger version of us. This requires you to practice true self-love and discipline. And discipline, by the way, is not the same thing as willpower. Willpower is bringing something into being, and discipline is just course correcting within yourself in the now. Step 7, orange, developing new core belief systems and male-female integration with transgender issues. So building on our understanding from steps 9 and 8, we're now ready to form some new core belief systems and to integrate our male and female energies. This is step 7 here, orange. Similar to light shadow work, male-female integration work gives you more awareness and power to achieve your goals. This work will not change who you are, as both sides exist whether we realize it or not. I will also give you a short overview of what it means to be a transgender individual. We're seeing a lot of transgender people. 1 in every 200 births results in ambiguous genitalia that they automatically default to female surgically. But there are certain aspects of being transgender that I want to just clear up for people so that they understand that there are many reasons why someone might be transgender, and none of them have to do with being crazy, because they're actually not crazy, whatever that means, at all. The next step is step 6, yellow, detoxification and the power of emotion. And there are 3 layers of detoxification. There's external detoxification, which includes taking a look at some of our personal care products and our cleaning products. Internal detoxification, which is about removing toxic substances from our body and restoring our gut health or our gut biome. Emotional detoxification and the power of emotion, which includes accepting all of our emotions and learning ways to make them work for us. Each subject layer deserves its own lesson, and I will also host a demonstration on how to make, use, and do the recommended products and procedures from the 3 step 6 lessons. The demonstration part, everybody will be making their own stuff, and you'll see how incredibly inexpensive and easy it is to make your own products. It's going to really save you on your budget too. You see, out in the commercial world, they want us to think that we're not enough and we have to run out and buy this shampoo and that soap or this counter spray, or we're going to die of germs. And all of that is just to make money. And it's really, really cool to learn how easy it is to take really good care of ourselves. And as part of the emotional content of this section, I came up with a little program called Me, Myself, and I. And it's how to integrate ourselves, because there's a mind, body, and spirit interplay which provides the signals we need to become more cohesive. And I'll give you just a little example of that, but we won't get into it much today. As I refer to me, I'm referring to my body. When I refer to myself, I'm referring to my mind. And if I combine my body working with my mind, I get my emotions and my physical sensations and feelings. Myself is my mind, and I is my subconscious soul. When we work together with the mind and the subconscious soul, we get your imagination and your desires. And desires are actual prayers. Because when you really, really want something, you're sending out that energy out into the universe to please bring that to you. And then the third scenario is the I, which is my subconscious soul, and me, my body. And this actually happened to me on more than one occasion, where my mind was interfering with what my soul wanted my body to do. And they worked together by causing me to become allergic to certain things that were holding me back, me not being able to tolerate certain situations that were holding me back. And I had no say in the mind. It just was an automatic thing. And I think a really good example for those of you that have had been close to people who've done childbirth or done childbirth, I'll tell you, the mind has nothing to do with it. That is a connection between the soul and the body taking over, and it's an amazing, amazing process. And the more we stop the mind from interfering, the more we get done. So that's going to get covered in step 6 yellow as well. So then we have quantum health transformation 2.0, step 5 green. Food is medicine and another source of universal love energy. Has anybody here seen or heard of Kirlian Photography? Mm-hmm. Okay. Kirlian Photography is where they're able to take a picture of the energy that's emanating out of live things. Quantum health transformation 2.0. This step concerns the body temple and the spirituality of food. A lot of people don't think of food in spiritual terms, and because of that, they tend to not eat in a way that actually properly supports the mind, the body, and the soul. On a spiritual level, our bodies are temples sustained in ways that surpass the physical elements we can see and touch. Kirlian Photography reveals the spiritual quality of food, which is also present in our physical etheric bodies. So when we eat real food, we're bringing energy that comes down from the sun, gets trapped into the plant or the animal or whatever. We eat it, and it helps sustain our bioenergy field as well. So it actually increases our own physical etheric bodies. Organic, fresh, raw, live, gently cooked and wild foods add an abundance of sun energy, as seen with Kirlian Photography, to nourish and heal us in ways mostly unknown to modern society. Food, as a rich source of spiritual energy, makes all things possible because it expands our conception of reality and possibility. In order to become enlightened and or filled with spirit, we must prepare ourselves for this gift. Simply taking steps to nurture and care for our temple bodies will make room for and clear the channels for a rewarding spiritual experience. If you give an inch of effort, the universe will provide a mile in return. Universal tender mercy is all around us, but we have to be willing to let it in. And we also have to be chemically and energetically open to receiving in order to get that. So what happens for me is, as I change my diet and basically going back to the way people ate 200 years ago. If it was here 200 years ago and people were eating it, that's kind of what I eat, sort of as a rule of thumb. But as we do that, our spiritual gifts increase, and we start to become more psychic, and we start to have more precognition, and we know how to plan for what's coming up, things like that. So we're going to cover topics like the vegan pitfalls, herbivore versus omnivore, blood type O and cruelty-free, pH and blood hunger, chewing and environment, insulin resistance and juicing, medicinal components of real food. So a lot of people know some of this, but it's fairly comprehensive, so we're going to devote the entire session to food. Step 4, blue, understanding the power of heuristics and speaking your truth. So in order to speak your truth, you have to find your truth. And your truth is what you have come to believe once you have stepped outside of the socioeconomic political construct or your socialized programming. So our socialized programming, we run on that until something happens and we realize it's not enough. We start to open up to other possibilities. That would be people who are what we would commonly call mainstream people. They're carrying on, but they have no idea how much of life they're not participating in or even seeing or even knowing is possible. Speaking your truth requires a shift in perception and new ways of expressing yourself. One way to step outside of our cultural programming is to consider how we learn on a total perceptual level and get a better understanding of our heuristic patterns. Does anyone here know what heuristics means? Heuristics is the whole process of taking in and interpreting data and then learning from it. This is how we plot our course through life, and it involves taking in data on a physical level, which would be what we see, hear, touch, smell, taste. The data we take in on a socio-emotional level, which is the culturally constructed meaning attached to the data, and the emotional sensations produced from our perceptions of it, as well as the data we take in on an energetic level, the energy produced from the symbols that form the data, and words are a good example of that. It is my belief that linguistic relativity and language influence our beliefs, and the use of words affects our perceptions and our patterns of learning. Since all things are connected, we do well to consider our choice of words and the methods of communication that we rely on. We will explore some common examples of heuristics in motion, both positive and negative, and look at how words, symbols, and the media affect our reality. So once we understand the energetics influencing our beliefs, we can then change them to better fit our personal truth, and free will is now possible. So when we're part of mainstream, we don't really have free will. We're operating within a construct or a cultural binding that's been put on us as we go out into the world. So what happens once we are able to step outside of that and see the bigger picture and notice all the freedom that's out there? And I've given an analogy. It's a little bit like if you go to a house party and it's a little bit overcrowded and they've invited too many people, or a lot of people showed up, and everybody's talking and it's hot and you can barely breathe in there. And finally you find your way to the kitchen and the back door, and you go out onto the back porch, and the stars are out and the air is clean. And you see some silhouetted trees, and you might notice something else, and you just, oh my God, it's so refreshing. And that's what it's like to step outside of the construct. So we've been warned, oh, don't step outside, it's not safe. But it's really safe, and it's really fresh, and it's really amazing. And at that point, we start to have free will. We form our own preferences. Maybe we ate peas all our life because our parents told us peas were good for us. But in reality, we can't stand peas, and we just decide we're not eating peas anymore. So even on a really silly small level, up to a very profound level, we now get to hatch our own preferences and experiment with life and make mistakes and fail and pick ourselves back up and keep going. And that's where free will comes in. Then we're accountable to free will, because then we have free will. Before that, we didn't know. We didn't even know what it was. Thought we had it, but we didn't really. Okay, step three. Step three, indigo. Understanding and using perception to manifest change. Seeing is believing. So we'll start with seeing is believing. So we've all heard the saying, seeing is believing. And it usually means I'm not going to believe it till I see it. This chair is not real until I see this chair and can touch this chair. Now this chair is real. But I've turned that on its ear. I consider this option. When we see something in our mind's eye or imagination and we believe it's possible for us, then seeing is also believing. I'll give you an example. I believed that I could have a dramatic weight loss. So when I was 320 pounds, I was pretty upset about my health, but I believed that I could lose weight. I believed I could, and I believed I could have a different body. And that started my body to actually change and give me the body that I wanted. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with me when I was a heavier person, but my health was not good. I wasn't very happy, and I limited myself socially because of it. And now I've lost weight 10 years ago, and except for, give or take 10 pounds, I've had it off for 10 years, and I am careful what I eat because I care about what I feed my body. But I'm not limiting what I eat in any way. In fact, I eat probably 2-3 times as much as I ever ate before when I was trying to diet. So it's just an example. I saw in my mind's eye that I could be a different looking kind of person, and I actually became that person. So there's quite a bit more to it, but we will wait until then. The second part of step 3 is working with the natural energy flow of the planet, growth and renewal. Year in and year out, there is a harmonious flow to the planet and all living things. If we divide the year by its equinoxes, we find that half the year contributes to growth and half the year to rest and renewal. Spring and autumn are periods of beginnings and endings, while summer and winter, the solstices, are the event horizons. By working with this natural ebb and flow of growth and renewal, we can supercharge our manifesting potential. So those of you who had pagan background training would get this immediately. The third step is don't run from your situation. With that which we consciously or subconsciously create remains for some time in our three-dimensional reality. So don't litter your life with manifestations only to discard or replace them before they come to fruition due to disappointment or your changing desires. So if you're changing your mind all the time, you're bringing stuff into manifestation, it starts to show up and you decide, oh, no, I'm not going to stick with it until it comes to full manifestation. I want to switch, I want something different. We're just making a big mess, a big energetic mess of our lives. So instead, choose things that will form a foundation for other bigger desires. Find new uses for that which you brought about. But now feel the urge to discard. Stop reinventing the wheel. Brick by brick, you can build a secure future. And then the fourth part of this lesson is corrupting your memories. And we all, pretty much most of us come from dysfunctional families. And part of the dysfunction of my family is my mother was so busy improving herself, she didn't really have time for us. And forgot about us, so we didn't get a lot of eye contact and we didn't get a lot of focused attention, right? And it really bothered me. And then I learned about corrupted memories from psych class, and they've done a lot of experiments, and this absolutely works. Maybe not to the same metaphysical level as it worked for me. But anyway, long story short, I decided I was going to make up a memory that was not true, where I would come home from school, instead of my mom ignoring me, she would make me tea. And if she noticed I had a bad day, she'd get out the good china. And I loved it. And I would think about this all the time, and it always made me feel fantastic. I didn't care if it happened or not. I was happy with this corrupted memory. 6 months later, I go to visit my mom, and just out of the blue, she turned to me and said, Karen, do you remember the tea parties we had after school? So somehow, I am so powerful that I changed my past reality. How could I do that? I have no idea. But thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Nothing that we have experienced until now is universally true or real. The past is made up of perceptual realities that are far from accurate, and so it is best not to take them too seriously. Even if we believe that what happened is real, why not go back and rewrite your story? I have found this to be very beneficial for healing from trauma and disappointments. We will also look at the Argyle Sock approach for creating energy for change. So there's ways of building the energy, and there's ways of reducing the energy. And we're going to look at turbulence, which is a feature of chaos theory, which is part of quantum physics. So quantum physics is going to be at every single step so that you're going to understand the material from a multi-spiritual perspective, whether you're Christian, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Jewish, whether you're pagan. But you're also going to understand that it's all based in science, and bring that all together for you in a nice, neat package. And then you can have more confidence in the work that you do. Not saying that you don't now, but you know how we can always be stronger and better. Okay, I'm just going to quickly get up to Violet, which is step 2, integration with higher selves. Oh my God, this is so much fun. People don't know, and I don't know where this number came from. I know it's all over sacred scriptures everywhere, regardless of the size. The 144,000. It came to me that I had 144,000 beings who are working in my favor, and I could choose who I wanted. So I could choose ancestors. I can choose angels. I can choose extraterrestrial multidimensionals, because generally extraterrestrials are multidimensionals because that's how they travel. They don't travel the way we travel in a linear pattern. Okay.
So is this when we look at like soul teams?
Yes, absolutely. This lesson concerns higher selves, spirit guides, the Akashic records, and the living library, and these concepts are explained in universal terms. Now, the Akashic records and the living library are the same thing. It's called the living library as the Palladians refer to it. Palladians are beings not from this world, and they call it the living library. But often, I think from Hindu teaching, originally it came Akashic records, but it's exactly the same thing. It's important to grasp how complex the subconscious mind is. Just as you care about yourself, so does your subconscious mind, because it's a part of you. Your higher self has the ability to bring you learning experiences when they are needed for your highest good. And we're going to look at the things which influence our perceptual arena, like heuristics, physical brain health, belief systems and attitudes, culture and morality, rules and laws, and distractions and addictions, because all of these things have a profound effect on how we perceive reality and how we make up our own reality. Our subconscious contains everything we have ever experienced via total sensory input, current collective consciousness, and the Akashic records, also known as the living library, which contain everything we have ever experienced as humans throughout time. Dreams, visions, and intuition are ways that we receive this helpful information from our vast subconscious resources. But it also influences how we communicate our needs. And we can actually talk to our subconscious mind. In fact, that's what we're doing when we pray, when we meditate, when we use affirmations and visualizations. Meditation strengthens the ties between the conscious and the subconscious self and facilitates two-way communication. Now, when I talk about beyond the three-dimensional, there's my higher self, which is directly connected to the different levels of spirituality where we just eventually become part of Source. So they're all connected to each other. Everything is connected to everything, and we have full access. It's just the mind, which has been so bastardized and brutalized by the powers that be, don't fully understand this connection. So I'm bringing this connection back just to make it really, really clear. And so we can actually form our own soul teams. And it's fun to experiment. I have had some that just came to me. I've had Sun Tzu come to me. Sun Tzu wrote The Art of War. Brilliant strategist who said the only successful war is the one that never gets fought. Brilliant, brilliant mind. And that this being came to my aid to help me strategize, to help me. I have had people from all different cultural backgrounds and even beings from other planets. There are some humanoid beings that have these kind of horned extra piece of bone that comes up like the dinosaurs. Yeah, okay. And they drill little holes in them. The females drill holes in them and hang jewels and stuff. And I've had them come and teach me grounding techniques because they're a very stocky race of humanoids, right? And so it just opens us up to so many incredible, but a little bit like Alice in Wonderland, but it's good, all good. Nothing bad ever came out of any of this, not for me ever, not for 1 minute.
Well, cured your cancer.
Yeah, cured cancer, exactly.
Yeah.
I went to the doctor and I had the tests and they came back and that I had these cysts under my arm and in my breast and they wanted to have everything removed and chemotherapy and radiation. I said, stop. She said, why? I said, you're scaring the hell out of me. She says, oh, well, this is what we have to do. And I said, no, I don't think so. Excuse me, and you've heard this story before. I know that some of you have. And I walked out of there and I said to the universe, which is vast and amazing, and said, it's between you and I whether I die. It's between you and I whether I have cancer. So I got this idea, right? I likes to bargain with higher powers. I said, how about if you show me a way that I can take care of this in practical terms, and I'm going to resist the urge to jump on the drama bandwagon. Because if I said, oh, I have cancer, people are going to go, oh, Karen, is there anything I can do? And I'd get free rides, and I'd get put up here, and I'd get to go there and do all these things. I'm not saying it's a piece of cake to have cancer. Don't get me wrong. It sucks. But what I'm saying is I had to recognize my potential need for drama, choose not to, and make a deal with Source where I floated it out there. I have cancer and I don't have cancer. In that magical in-between space that Source and I could work together. 3 months later, I went to see the surgeon. I had no symptoms. So I don't know, I can't claim that I healed myself, but and I had to make changes in my life. I had to go for really long walks. I did a lot of meditating. But it really helped my spiritual connections too. So you're getting all of this is my real life experiences. I've had experiences with all of this. I'm going to finally just touch on step 1, white state of bliss and spiritual exercises. Because once you've done this, this is going to be a piece of cake. So what is a state of bliss and how can we personally achieve it? The state of bliss includes feelings of perfect happiness and spiritual joy. Achieving a state of bliss requires comfort for the body, mental happiness and contentment along with a joyful spirit. This combination creates a magical condition which makes all things possible. We will discover how love, joy, peace, kindness, goodness, mildness, patience, self-control, and faith are not only virtues, but are literal portals to a more rewarding existence. Practicing these virtues will create your state of bliss so that you can experience feelings of perfect happiness and spiritual joy. By participating in the 9 steps to quantum health transformation, we bring comfort to the body, which is steps 8, 6, and 5, happiness to the mind, which is covered in steps 9, 7, 4, and 3, and joy to our spirit, which is covered in steps 2 and 1. Thus creating the condition necessary to feel a state of bliss. This combination creates a magical condition which not only makes all things possible, but allows you to create a reality environment which is peaceful and rewarding. These exercises will improve every experience you have, and in really surprising ways. Now, this particular component, I downstepped from Mary of Magdalene. In some of her sacred writings, which are not that easy to find, her whole philosophy and her whole interpretation of Christ's teaching is to have a comfortable body, which requires, us to take care of it, to have a peaceful mind, to have happiness, just happiness. And then, of course, on a spiritual level, we end up being joyful. And when we line that up, bing, 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 boom, we get the bliss. And bliss is amazing, and you don't need to do drugs to have bliss. Although some drugs which are plant-based absolutely do enhance it. And the other thing is, I be really careful. Everybody be really careful, because I'm going to tell you something. Enlightenment is a lot easier than what we think it is. It's more about letting go and not putting all these rules on us than it is about having more rules. And people can get really turned off spirituality by church. They can get really turned off spirituality by, I'll give you an example, as I was in the raw vegan movement for a while. Oh, did I suffer. But I still believe that this was the only way I should be eating. I stuck with it, and I really made myself suffer until I realized that I didn't have to do that anymore. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give you lots of alternatives. We're going to cover things like pH that a lot of people have no idea about. A lot of things like that. That's it. Does anybody have anything they want to say? I wanted to put my website up here for those of you who don't know it, www.KarenHolton with 2 O's, healthcoach.com. You can read my blog articles, my transformation videos, services, but the organite, crystals, and then of course what's not on here is my Sybil magazine articles. I was an international author. 12 of my articles went into Sybil magazine over the year. That was pretty interesting. And that was for, again, a different audience. So everything I produce has a little bit of a different flavor or slant to it. So I guess that's it.
Lion only makes you hurt. Denying only makes it worse. Love and surrender seem the fastest way to bring an end to bitter, painful days. Somewhere down the stars are falling like jewels upon a thin black veil, and you will thrill to hear your calling. 5 seconds seems like 5 billion years, 10,000 galaxies away, yet still so near.